Senior Project Officer with WWF in Pakistan, and I'll be today's moderator for this session. I would like to formally welcome you all to our session today, that is to commemorate World Water Day. World Water Day is celebrated each year on 22nd of March to appreciate and acknowledge the value of water that it holds in our daily lives. We all know that water, for us as humans, has a vital role to play in our lives, but at the same time it also contributes to our food, our manufacturing and our energy sectors as well. It has, in Pakistan, 90% of our water is consumed in our agriculture sector, so we understand that our economy is water-based, and so it is very important to understand how water plays its role in our economy and our daily lives. Today, to discuss on the imperative issues of water, we have with us a very distinguished panel with whom we would like to learn and enlighten ourselves about how water is used in our society, what is its current scenario, and more today, as the theme for today suggests, is Together for Water. Our main idea of today's discussion would be to explore a collaborative and a collective approach, and what different sectors have to play a key role in ensuring that this collectiveness can ensure sustainability of our water resources. But before I begin, I would like to call upon stage Dr. Shahid Masood, who is the Dean of Syed Babar Ali School of Engineering and Sciences, to say a few words and share his thoughts on today's event. Sir.
Welcome. First of all, I'd like to welcome the distinguished guests that we have. And I was really impressed. Abubakar sent me the names of the distinguished participants of today's discussion. Mr. Hamad Naki, CEO of World Wildlife Foundation, Nisar Mehman Saab, Chairman Water Environment Fund, Dr. Zakir Hussain Dahri, Principal Scientific Officer, Pakistan Agriculture Research Council, Dr. Imran Saqib Khalid, Head of Environment and Climate Change Program, SDBI, and our own Dr. Abubakar. Zamir Ahmed Sumro, Regional Director, Pakistan Council of Research in Water Resources. All very distinguished names. So really a warm welcome. And the issue of water is one of the paramount issues, the challenges that the humanity faces in our present era. And one thing that is obvious in dealing with these type of emerging challenges that the society confronts in this millennium is that there is no one solution, there is no one discipline, academic discipline, that provides solution to such problems. And most of the problems that we face now are not related to infrastructure. That was the previous century that we were more concerned about getting electricity at different places and getting railways and the buildings and all. The challenges that we face now are more to do with the quality of life and sustainability. And to solve those problems, we need a multidisciplinary approach. We cannot just rely on a particular civil engineering department of a particular university to take up the challenges that relate to water. And same for other disciplines, it cannot be. And moreover, these challenges have policy implications, these have technological dimensions, these have data is a word that is getting incorporated in many research nowadays, data, modeling, forecasting, budgets, planning, so many things. So apart from technology, there are so many other dimensions that should be now taken into account to solve not only the water but other problems. Today's event is specifically to deal with water, and Abubakar just told me that it's one of the hallmark events of Nestle worldwide. I think we are, as LAMS at the School of Science and Engineering, are happy to partner with Nestle, with WWF, with so many other organizations in giving our input. And one of the biggest contributions that I feel that we are making is the ability or the effort that takes place in getting so many experts together in the same room at the same time to to discuss these important issues. I think this is one of the important reasons, and this is one of the reasons that led to the establishment of our WIT Center, Water Informatics Technology Center, that Dr. Abu Bakr is heading. The reason, the objective, one of the main objectives is to be able to gather experts from different disciplines to develop different kind of approaches, not only technology but other approaches to in taking up these challenges. And remember that if you look at the history and you look around us, the solution to most of the problems would eventually come from our own people, from our own selves. There are very few problems that we can import a solution for. We can import technology at times, but really the entire solution has to come from within the country, within the people. So we have not been investing in our own people, and we feel that it is time that we start to realize the importance of good quality trained manpower and the role that it can play in solving these number of challenges. So I am a firm believer of the fact that we should nurture talent, we should get together around talent and give them opportunities to solve these important challenges that face us. So I will not take long. I wish you all the best. Have a nice day. I wish you have interesting discussions and are able to fulfill the objectives that you came here for. With this, I thank Suhaib and Abu Bakr, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts and opinion with us on the importance of water. But over the past few years, ladies and gentlemen, we've also observed and seen that the stresses upon our water resources have been increasing. With a mix of growing population and varying climate scenarios, we have observed that our water resources are facing stress, and therefore there is an associated water security risk that is aligned to it. Today, we have a distinguished panel with us, whom I'd like to now introduce and invite over to the stage. The idea of today's discussion is to understand from them what, in their opinion, and what, in their organization's perspective, is a way forward towards a collective approach to solving the water challenges that we are facing today. To begin with, I would like to invite Mr. Hamad Nagi Khan, who is the Director General for Worldwide Fund for Nature in Pakistan, WWF. He has been serving WWF for over 19 years, has a vast experience in water resource management, and has been part of key water projects both in Pakistan and abroad. So, sir, I'd like to welcome you on stage. Next up, I'd like to request a distinguished personality and a guest, Mr. Nisar Maimun Saab. He's currently the chairman for Water Environment Forum. Just as a correction, Mr. Maimun has been serving the Senate of Pakistan. He has also an experience of chairing the Parliamentary Committee for Water Resources in Pakistan. So he has a broad experience and understanding of key water governance challenges and issues, and we'll be very interested to hear from him what is the current state of our water governance in Pakistan, and what in his opinion is a way forward towards a collective action approach. Sir, I'd like to invite you. Thirdly, I'd like to invite Dr. Zakir Hussain Daghi, who is the Principal Scientific Officer at Pakistan Agriculture Research Council, PARC. He has been an agriculture engineer, if I'm not wrong, sir, and then has a vast experience in water resource management. Sir, I'd like to invite you. Our fourth panelist for today is Dr. Imran Khalid. He is currently the head of Environment and Climate Change Department at Sustainable Development Policy Institute, SDPI, has a vast experience of water resource management, and he particularly works on flood resources and floodplain management. And so we'd be very interested to hear from him, from his experience, what is his approach towards a collective action. So, our fifth panelist for today is a very renowned personality in LUMS, is Dr. Abu Bakr Muhammad. He is the current director for Water Informatics and Technology Center based in LUMS. He by profession is an electrical engineer and has vast experience and knowledge about technologies. He is currently working on several water technologies, and as a technology person and as an engineering expert, we would like to hear from him what role does technology play in today's modern era of technology advancement, and how can that contribute towards solving our water issues, sir. And lastly, we have Mr. Zameer Ahmed Sumro, who is the Regional Director for Pakistan Council of Research in Water Resources. He is also an agriculture engineer by profession, and we would be very interested in hearing from him what is the government's perspective in research and policy, and how does he see government's role from a research perspective in contributing towards collective action for effective water management, sir. Thank you so much, and so we have our quorum complete, and I'm very honored and delighted to be speaking to all these distinguished personalities, because personally, being a water practitioner, I can understand the gravity of the issue. I can understand what is this current situation. But to begin our discussion, I would like to ask Mr. Hamad Naki Khan, that being the head of a largest environmental organization of Pakistan, what role does he see of an organization like WWF, and what is the current scenario, and how can we move towards a collective action or collective approach, sir?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Sohaib. Before I, come to the role of organizations like WWF or other stakeholders, let me share a few facts to refresh your memories. Please keep in mind that there's a water crisis. In the sense that if you look at the quantity of water, it's getting low every day. Because of the demand from other sectors, because of the population growth rate, there are all kinds of figures, but the normal benchmark which is used is 1,000 cubic meter per person per year, and a lot of reports say, some say that we have already hit that figure, and few say that we are about to hit that figure, which means that there will be physical water scarcity. I mean, if you look at the world, about 2.5 billion people, which is around 36% of the global population, live in water scarce regions, and these are the regions which produce 20% of the GDP, the global GDP. And so we are, one of those regions where there will be, in certain parts, there is already physical water scarcity. The second is the fact which is related to quality of the water. Again, it's very unfortunate, but we do not see, literally anywhere in this country where wastewater is being treated, except for few industries which are, really compelled by their buyers, and they have to do it. Otherwise, we don't see that. And I'll come to in my opinion, or in my organization's opinion, that what's the reason, for that. And then think about the climate change. Whatever, people say, there's now there is no debate that climate change is a myth or is something which is kind of fiction. It's a reality. And just to give you one example, if you look at the natural disasters in the last 20 years, 90% of those were related to weather. There were floods, there were droughts, there were heat waves, there were storms. And then in a lot of regions, we can see the rain patterns, have changed or are changing. And we in this region, I use the term, we are the children of monsoon. Our economies, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, our economies depend on monsoon rains. So just imagine, if that rain pattern, which is our lifeline, just like the Indus is our lifeline, the monsoon is our lifeline, gets disturbed. And the snow and glacier melt, which constitutes half of the water in our rivers, that gets disturbed. So the bottom line is that yes, there's a water crisis, and the water crisis to me, and I think most of colleagues, I'm confident that they'll agree, is the governance issue. And one of the reasons that why is this a governance issue, that we have never valued water. We undervalue the water. We never treat water as a commodity. We know that water, is required, is essential. Water is life. And then obviously this has become a slightly controversial and debatable issue for obvious reasons. The Constitution of Pakistan gives the right to life. Clause 9, right to life. And when you define life, as I said, water is life. Access to potable water is also a basic human right, which your Constitution provides you. So in that respect, it's the state's responsibility to ensure that every citizen in this country gets access to potable water, which is not the case. Even, in one of our campaigns, Pakistan's Water at Risk, I was giving a presentation to the Prime Minister, and I said, Excellency, if you open the tap in your house, I'm pretty confident you won't get potable water as per PCRWR guidelines. There will be some parameters which either exceed or do not meet the criteria. So that's the situation. But obviously the reports and the access, whenever even there is a dug well, they have access to water. So we don't value water. And the reason is industry, municipalities, individuals, households, they have no incentives or, using a negative word, penalties to either conserve water or not to pollute water. Literally. I mean, as I said earlier, what's the incentive? Why a farmer, should save water? Why an industrialist should switch off the tube well? Or, what are the penalties? What are the incentives? Is this free for all? Can we afford to have an arrangement? So in that respect, when now as a water person, it's very clear to me that we have to value water. But before that, we have to understand water. To understand water, we should have scientific data. Even when I use the figure, we have 1,000 cubic meter. I was relying on data from a couple of think tanks or organizations. Do we have solid scientific data in all respects? Do we value water? Water has an economic value. It has a social value. It has forget the environment. Obviously, it has an environmental value. It has a cultural value. And we have to ensure that we value the water. Now, when we understand water, when we value water, then we are in a position to manage water. And that's where the bottom line, which I shared with you guys, which is the governance issue. Who is responsible? Who has the mandate? When? How? Where? What's the role of WAPDA? What's the role of PCRWR? What's the role of irrigation department? What's the role of environment department? Who's responsible for pollution in a certain canal? Who's responsible to manage that the aquifers, the Pakistan's aquifers, depleting aquifers are not contaminated? So who is, if everybody is responsible, then no one is responsible. So in many respects, unfortunately. Now coming to the most important, the governance issue, we have, and I've used this sentence, please forgive me because I don't know how many times I've used this sentence. We have policy for everything, but we don't have national water policy. We were very happy and excited. I was part of this commission by the superior courts, and we were told that, obviously, and I reviewed, I don't know, the first draft that we reviewed, that was in 2007 or 8, the first draft of national water policy. But I also reviewed a latest draft which went through all the processes, and it was by the way, it was approved by the federal cabinet, and it was supposed to be kind of signed off by CCI, which is the Council of Common Interest I think yesterday or day before. At the last moment, we were very happy. Wow, we will have a national water policy. There will be a national water council represented by all the stakeholders. There will be, the governance issues will be addressed. A lot of issues related to infrastructure, particularly the grey infrastructure, building of dams and storages, and that would be, addressed. The water flows will be addressed. But at the last moment, the meeting was cancelled because despite the fact that the draft was vetted by all the provincial governments, at the last moment, one chief minister or two chief ministers felt, no, there are still. So the issue, which is a crisis, has been politicized, for whatever reasons, yeah. And we were seeing, light at the end of the tunnel, but at the last moment, somebody blocked that light, and the meeting was cancelled. I wish, I pray, and I hope that this meeting would happen in the next few days before, under the present government, because I think that would be a feather in the cap if they do it, along with a lot of other feathers if they feel. That we try to address that. We try to identify the roles and responsibilities clearly. I don't want to focus on WWF but that was the question, but I'll just take 1 minute. Because of the fact that water is the biggest issue, water in WWF is the biggest program. We are working up from the north on projects to watershed management, catchment areas, going down in the plain. We are working with 125,000 farmers to promote water efficient practices to improve efficiency in different crops. Coming further down, a wetlands program, because we strongly feel the theme, together possible and nature-based solution. We have to reconnect the rivers with our floodplains. We have to reconnect our river with the natural wetlands, because that's the nature, has always provided such solutions, and we have to revert back to those solutions. Great structures, building dams, they're good. I do not oppose that, but along with that, the nature, and that's the focus of the water program at WWF. Working with industry, launched the water stewardship. Nestle, I think the 2 sites are now certified for water stewardship, because strongly feel that the role of corporate and private sector is critical. I can, maybe during the question answer, I'll have
Sure.
more time to deliberate upon that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your observation. I think what I take out of this is that one, there is a governance issue, but then there's also disconnectivity that we observe in our system. You, sir, mentioned about data being in silos. We do not have a coordinated system of data management. So that is another very critical issue that is being faced in our Pakistan's water economy and water system. So moving on to Sir Nisar, sir, being part of the highest pedestal of Pakistan's water governance, we would like to understand from you how do you see governance at its current stage? We also talked about Pakistan's water policy, and how do you see a connectivity coming out of this, a collaborative approach coming out of this through a water governance lens? If you could share.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's a great pleasure to be here at the top university of Pakistan. And I think the subject that you have chosen on a day, which is 22nd of March, which is the Water Day, is, I think, very, very appropriate. Together, what does it say? Together for water. We all are together. In this room, we are together. But allow me to also say that this whole nation is together in terms of many things. The things are not a crisis, and we are not in Africa. There is a method in the madness that we may have in Pakistan, but things are working. And allow me to also defend this statement by giving you the facts. I think number one is that here what we are really talking about is that, in my view, is the nature-based solution for water. And I think Hamad did allude to it, but I think there is much more that will come from the left-hand side, where what scientific projects do we have and what are we doing in the universities and research institutions for the creation of the situation where the water for all can be possible and clean water, drinking water should be possible. So I think we'll hear from it, but I think this is a great thing. Now, you have thrown a very big challenge. I'm not very clearly, I'm not the government representative. I am right now representing the Water Environment Forum and not the fund, because you might say I'm loaded with money I don't have, despite being a Mayman. So I think in the forum, it's a forum for which I'm grateful to the person who is sitting here, and Khalid Murtazallah Sahab. I remember the first time when we were introducing in 2014 this forum, which is formed, it's a non-government, non-profit organization of professionals who are associated with water. Professionals right from the research to the higher position. When we were presenting, and there was a big program, and Khalid Murtazallah Sahab led a basis of direction to this organization way back in 2014, and I'm very pleased that you did this. He said you have a big agenda of research, everything is happening, lots of things happening, and what we said is the communication at all levels within the country. We need that, and I think this is one of the major issues. I think the crisis is the crisis of communication at all levels, and I will start with this. First of all, we need to have a directory of what are the institutions and organizations. Please understand that Pakistan has got a 2025 plan, which is this government. Earlier they had 2020, but now they have 2025. And part of it, they recognize that there's water, according to the Faulkner research, the Pakistan water is at the level which some say it is scarce, and some say that they are, in fact, their sensitivity is so much that we may be in big crisis. Wherever we may be, we need water, and this is recognized by them. They also recognize in the 2025 policy that the plan that they announced by I think Hassan Iqbal, the minister was responsible, and it was adopted by worldwide, is that there will also be an increase in the reservoirs, the storage of water, because we're hardly for 30 days water use, which is very tricky. So a lot of these things are recognized. I also think that they have also been very much in line with the world phenomena that's going on. Pakistan and water. Water is Pakistan's asset, and what are those assets? Where do we have those assets? One is, of course, the asset that you have in the 7,235 glaciers that we have. This is the biggest asset, and this is in the territory of Pakistan. So you can say, well, we have the asset and we are under control. No, we are not, because Hamad did mention about the climate change impact. Climate change is impacting the increase in temperature, the decrease in carbon dioxide is affecting those glaciers, and therefore this asset needs to be protected. And there are policies to that also. And the second is the asset is the rivers. You know that Indus Basin Treaty was signed in 1960, whereby we are the owners, so to say, of the three rivers, the Indus Basin and the Jhelum and Chenab. And thank God we have the structures on these, but there are need for more structures. And I'm very happy to discuss this, whoever is interested in this, because I cannot explain as to where these structures are needed. But the fact that Indus Basin is mainly used more than 70% by Pakistan and not India or China or Afghanistan. But then this need to be, infrastructure is there, and infrastructure need to be, investment has to be made for that. We have, alhamdulillah, a lot of good institutions. Number one, start with the water. WAPDA has done a tremendous job of providing these infrastructure, and this is not only the dams, the barrages, but canals and all this. So it's not something that we don't have. I think what I understand from Ahmad is that that's there, but this need to be improved and may need to be further invested, because you cannot have an investment done and you say this building will be invested and that's the end of the story. It's a continuous affair. So we have the infrastructure. We need further structures like the water in the Charbela. The silting is taking place. So what is the plan? The plan exists, and I can show you those plans. And more than me, Khalid Saab hai, he can tell you that there are structures to be raised above the Charbela. The reason why above the Charbela is because upstream, if the structures are made, then the slit, whatever silting is taking place, will be stopped at each location. And let me now talk about the government policies. Government has one excellent breakthrough they had. On the climate change, this government can take pride in it for years to come, that in 2013, they came out with a national climate change policy. And along with it, because climate is not Lahore based, it's not Punjab based, it's not Pakistan based, it's not regional South Asia based, it's a world phenomenon. So we are very much part of that, and I can tell you, starting from the Rio Agreement in 1992, and then all the, coming down to COP23 in Berlin, there are a lot of things that happen, and I cannot in the short time tell you, but Pakistan government is very much involved in responding to what the world is doing and being part of it. We are not like America, which ran away because the president changed, which is a shame, I would say, but then they cannot walk out because they can only take one more year to walk out, and we'll see what happens. But Pakistan is part of the global phenomena, participating in agreement. And similarly, in the nation, we had this Indus Basin Treaty. But remember the floods of 2010. I just want you to remember the flood. Water is excellent. We need more water. But then if it comes in the form of floods where we cannot store, and storage can never stop the flood and store enough to stop the flood. So we had this phenomenon, it's a nature. Nature had this Indus overflow because of the rain, and also remind you that Kabul, at the same time, Kabul River also had the same overflow, and therefore we had a disaster. Now we didn't have disaster just because of these two natural phenomena. We also had it because there was the obstructions. I must say that nature-based solutions are that when there is, if you build up in the Mall Road of Lahore, a building right in the middle in front of the Governor House, and then you expect that the traffic will flow properly, it cannot. So we have raised illegally a lot of structures because my land is in the way, so I want water, so I divert it. The laws are there. It's Pakistan's biggest problem is the implementation of the laws. I can tell you that a committee was formed. I did. I was appointed the chairman of the Pakistan Parliamentary Committee on Water Resources, PCWR. It exists, and you can see it on my website. The report is there. The report was agreed in the Parliament of Pakistan by the senators and the National Assembly members who were part of this. Why I'm saying on this side, because as the chairman sits always in the committee in the middle, and the members sit on the right. On the left was sitting the chief minister of each of the 4 provinces. I can even remember their name, and then the water minister at that time was Sher Pao, and all the rest of the government institutions that are there. In addition to water, we have PMD, so it can also tell you what's the weather like and what's happening. So we have the institutions, we have the research also, and we had these agreements. And this committee had agreed that there will be additional dam, which would be Basha Dam. Why I'm mentioning the Basha is because Basha, everybody agreed. Kalabagh was there, it was down Charbela, and therefore what was there is that let's raise the structures ahead, and this is known as cascading effect. This is the word that they use, and the World Bank also had approved of it, and that will be made, and there are a number of other dams that will be made, but that Basha Dam was approved, agreed by all, but I must say that all is not so good. unfortunately, since 2005 and 6, after all the agreement, very little money came, and of course they are doing it, the work is going on. Work is, as they say, in progress, but not with the kind of speed as with the crisis that has been alluded to by Ahmed. I think we need to go with the speed, and whatever, and the Parliament decided, it was not Parliament decided, Parliament can only recommend. Now let me also clarify in governance, there are three aspects. One is the Parliament, the other is the executive, the other is judiciary. Now judiciary, I want to be on record to say judiciary is there to interpret the law, period. That is what the constitution would say. And executive plans, based on whatever the mandate that's been given to them, they plan and protect all the water resources. And Parliament is the one which is the oversight on them, and we can recommend. So we recommend, and the executive branch sitting on the left accepted it. I think the implementation of those laws and those agreements need to be done. Now, I would say that one or two things that you had mentioned in there, the quantity I mentioned to you, we need more, so we need structures, and we need a judicious use. Here you have a pamphlet which says 50% is vested. I don't know about these figures, but the fact is 90% of the water which is for the agriculture consumption, if it is vested, so which means we need a judicious use of it, and that you may have laws, the government may have policy, like the policy, I'll talk a little bit about water policy also, and the quality will be, I'll leave it to my friend from the PCRWR to speak about it, but infrastructure we have, institutions we have, and what we need is not only the water which is in the barrages and canals and the dam, but also the groundwater, because I think that is something that we also have. So there's a lot of various aspects. Now the question that you asked in the governance, yes, we need a water policy yesterday. Unfortunately, for whatever reason it is. As we sit here, I understand that they are discussing and they may be able to approve it, but just now you told me that they have cancelled it or changed it. This is not the first time. I think that is where the organization, international and national, come in to emphasize on the decision maker that there's a need to bring those policies right there, because the policies will kind of structurally allow everyone to do. Now the question is that I have one observation which I'll give. Why are we, if everything is all right, why are we talking like this? This is there, this is not. Because there is no communication. And I think we all together here want water which is for life, and for the 210 million people of Pakistan, this is survival, because food, energy and water nexus is there. As you all know, in that we need the policies. Yes, the policies will be there, but more than that, let us find out, and my recommendation to this August House will be, do we have a directory? If not, maybe Ahmed can take up, because he has not the fund. And Directory of Pakistan, what everybody is doing, because I know that there's a duplication going on. Therefore, all the good money that comes to Pakistan, if the money comes from abroad, the Asian Foundation or World Bank or whatever, it comes to Pakistan. Maybe it is one organization or another. We must judiciously use it. Let's have a directory of what are the institutions and what they are doing. Because you say what WIT is doing, what PMD is doing, it is defined, but there is no communication amongst ourselves. And this is the good communication that you're in. And in addition to that, who are the water experts and who are those professionals? Maybe one directory in that regard. And environment people. Environment is not only water related, but please also understand that SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which are what, 17, out of which one is for fresh drinking water, but there are 5 or 6 which are related to water. And the last one of them is water for the survival of the sea life, the ocean life. I think ocean, we did as a chairman of the Defense Committee, we did a survey and reported that the water untreated goes down and destroying our ships because, and then $1 billion was being replaced. So I think these are the things we all need to communicate more, and this is a good beginning or good addition, because there's a lot communication going on, and I think we'll be open to questions whenever the time comes.
So thank you, sir, for I think it was a very comprehensive overview of our governance, but also linking it up with the challenges on ground, and so you rightly mentioning the role of infrastructure in this whole process. What I learned from this whole discussion was from you, sir, is we have all the ingredients, but they are in bits and pieces. We need an integration solution, and I think the forum today also calls for this action to be taken, is how to look for a collective approach. Also, considering interest of time, I would now move on to our third speaker, Dr. Zakir. And sir, from you, would be interested to know, as coming from a scientific background and particularly focusing on agriculture, what is your take on the role of research and policy in integration and connectivity for water resource management?
Thank you, Ahmad. I also have a similar feeling to be here at this very august occasion, and to be present at one of the best universities in Pakistan. Before I go to the actual topic, I just wanted to say that this particular day is pointed out by Honorable Mr. Memon sir, is for the water day, and this year's theme was actually nature for water. We have been hearing frequently about the water for nature, and I think I still remember there was 1 year specifically allocated for water for nature. But again, now it's reverse, nature for water. So that actually tells the severity of the problem and the urgency of the problem that we are faced with. Coming back to the actual topic, we all know that water is essential for life and for all ecosystem services, and all social economic developments are due to this one. But we all also know that freshwater resources are also finite, and also more often a shared resource. It is also unevenly distributed in time and space. So there are a lot of, so that's why mostly we feel that droughts and floods are also recurring phenomena. So we are hit by both the extremes. And currently, I think there was an estimate that world's population is going to increase 2 billion by 250, and that will require 30% more water that we are currently having. So that's really a huge task, and what we are need to do is to have use more effectively, efficiently, and judiciously. In Pakistan, I think we have been hearing more about the water. We also have a lot of problems due to our dependence on single river system, which is also a transboundary. So the system is also deteriorating, and also is challenged by a number of stressors, including climate change, including urbanization, industrialization, and also increasing competitive uses from the other sectors. Today, agriculture is the most water user. Almost 93% is used by agriculture. But with the passage of time, when the industries grows, and also there is large competition, and agriculture has actually surrendered its use in future. There's no water additional coming. So what we are looking at actually to bring systematic improvements in agricultural water use, and PARC is actually doing most of the research on the agricultural water management. And in this direction, I think, unfortunately, the research more in around the world has been undertaken by most of the universities, or maybe in the private sector. But here, I think it's the task left out for the few specialized governmental organizations whose capacity in terms of financial and also technical terms are also very limited. So to achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030, I think there's a huge emphasis on the private sector involvement, and there's a huge role and critical role they could play in terms of investments in water infrastructure and water management. And I can tell that PARC is already having some kind of thoughts within that in this direction, and we are already having some collaborations from the private sectors and on all subsectors of life. For example, in water subsector, we have recently joined hands with Nestle Pakistan, and we are also in the process of Hashu Foundation to deal with the waters. And the Nestle, actually we have come up with a joint venture to link energy, water and high value crops to improve the people's livelihood, particularly the rural peoples who are suffering from both the short energy and the water securities. So that will help actually to achieve the many objectives in terms of development. But I think there is also very urgent need for industries, because industries or private sector are also major users, and their use in future is going to increase. There's a need to have intent and also strategy for all these private sectors to invest in the especially in the water. And I think that there's a lot of scope in specifically the water conservation and also rehabilitation activities, because I feel that most of the industries are also responsible for the deterioration of ecosystems. So there's a huge potential where they can have a large investments and collaborations and because I feel that government alone or public sector institutions alone cannot solve these problems. Because the problems now we already harness the simple problems. Now we are facing with complex problems, and complex problems we really need partnership from different expertise from different quarters. So I just left here that in future I think there are two important conclusions, that we need major investment in water infrastructure and also in the effective water governance mechanism to deal with these complex problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir. I think it was very important to learn from an agriculture's perspective, because in today's time we see that, up till now we believe that agriculture is a major shareholder of our water resources, but as you sir mentioned, that the emerging industrial development has a key role to play in that as well. And so therefore we believe that there is in this whole debate of collective action, the role of public-private partnerships is going to be crucial to determine the fate of our water resources. At this point in time, I'd just like to take a moment to pause to ask if there are any questions from the audience. I'd like to take one question, if there is one, before moving forward.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question to Dr. Nari, just regarding this. Since आप कह रहे हैं कि 60% of our water is used for agriculture.
90%, over
90%, चले 90% is even worse. But मुझे बताएं कि आपकी कोई पॉलिसी है जहाँ आप क्रॉपिंग और फार्मिंग के ऊपर एक फॉर इंस्टेंस क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट फार्मिंग के ऊपर कोई कर रहे हैं पॉलिसी? क्योंकि देखें मसलन आप लोगों ने कोई ऑल्टरनेट क्रॉप्स दिए हैं. फॉर इंस्टेंस पाकिस्तान exports a lot of rice. We are one of those rice producing country. आपको पता है कि rice सबसे ज़्यादा water absorbent है. आप कोई alternate cropping या alternate वो नहीं देते, क्योंकि when we are exporting rice, we are actually exporting water, to other countries. Do you think it's an ethical, practice for a water scarce country?
A very good question. Let me tell you that actually, ideally, there should be a optimized cropping, what you are talking about actually. We already have PRC, I think developed in 1960s and 1980s. We had developed agroecological zones, and that would mean to actually to invest in certain cropping patterns within that. But But this is a strictly regulation kind of activity, and in a country where most of the sugar mafia are sitting in assemblies, you can't control. I mean, look at for example, at the moment, Pakistan is surplus in wheat, surplus in rice, surplus in sugar. And we used to be surplus in cotton, but nowadays we are a lot of importing. So, and what we earn actually, many folds of that we invest on importing edible oils, importing pulses, importing fruits, and importing vegetables. So the question lies, what we need to do is to actually have very defined cropping patterns, and also looking at the investment opportunities and industrialization and everything. So we need to regulate and enforce these ones. Otherwise, we will be.
We should have climate smart agriculture.
Yeah, I forgot. Actually, we are now currently working on this climate smart agriculture. We already having a project on that. Introducing, we intent was to synthesize the information from whole the South Asia, what we are actually doing in irrigation, water management, and agriculture, and which technologies or practices are underway, and which are the most promising. And we already have some kind of testing or piloting in our PRC system, I think, in 2-3 occasions. From where we actually want to take an example. These are the few of the promising technologies which we term the climate and water smart actually, and that have a promising solution for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir. I think if there is one more question, I'll take before. Sure.
My question is to Mr. Nisar. Since the entire speech of yours was about the advocating government policies, what is going on, and what government thought about it, and what government would do in next 5 or 10 years about the water policy. So I think I should ask you this question also. Okay, when we think of making a motorway or a metro or orange train, we do it in a year or so or 2 years, and the entire law team and everybody has come on board. What actually is the problem with the government or the policymakers that don't see this huge problem as a big one, as a forthcoming one, and we don't make policies, and we think about making drafts and drafts and drafts, and you talk about judiciary to कि वो law को interpret करें और सब कुछ करें. बहुत बेसिक लेवल पे भी आप देखें, आपके कोर्स के अंदर कोई किताब नहीं है, सब्जेक्ट नहीं है जो वाटर के ऊपर एम्फसाइज करें. एड्स के अंदर, कमर्शियल टीवी एड्स के ऊपर आप देखते हैं कि वाटर को ज़ाया ना किया जाए. देयर इज़ नो एजुकेशन पॉलिसी. उसमें पानी तो है, बहुत दूर की बात है. सबसे ज़्यादा पानी जो है वो, जब आप बात कर रहे थे एडिंग मोर रिजर्वायर, तो मे बी आई वाज थिंकिंग कि शायद आप खुदा से क्वेश्चन करें कि और पानी दें और हम ताकि और वेस्ट करें. सबसे ज़्यादा पानी जैसे बिजली की चोरी को रोकने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, तो पानी की जो लीकेज है उसको रोकना क्यों नहीं अभी तक किया. डैम्स और ग्लेशियर्स तो बात की बात है, जो करंटली ऑन ग्राउंड पानी ख़त्म हो रहा है, ज़ाया हो रहा है, उसके ऊपर क्यों नहीं हम काम कर रहे हैं. उसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ लॉ जो है वहाँ पर क्यों नहीं हो रही.
Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Mudassir Jahangir.
Okay, Mr. Mudassir, thank you very much. I think there were a couple of questions, so I will just answer a couple of them in the same way. First of all, why do we have why do we not stop the pilferages or whatever the system offers, the proper use of it? I think I mentioned that we need to use whatever we have judiciously. And if you really manage this, then perhaps you will think that there's no need for further storages. I firmly believe, and the statistics tell us, that we need more storages. And they are not only large storages. There is also the smaller dams, the large dam. I only talked about Basha being the large dam, but there are a lot of smaller dams which are there too. So whatever you do, the pilferages must be stopped, whether you have additional capacity or not. So I think this is taken for accepted. Your point is very valid, that we need to stop all the losses that are there. For example, the water line losses, they have, each government knows what are the losses and they need to be stopped also. And I'll give you an example. I am basically from Karachi, and in Karachi, the Karachi Electric, which is a private owned now, they have taken over the, what they have done is that I was surprised that I happen to live in Defence, and there is no shortages of electricity, there are no blackouts, there is no what they call load shedding. Why? I asked, what is the question? What is the situation? The point is that they are commercial. See, there's a difference between government and government. Government keep giving it, and commercial say, if you give me the revenue, I'll give you the product. So they have cut down, they now have cut down in the areas where they get the revenue, and they will, there's no load shedding. In the areas where they don't, they do that loading. So I think this is what now water has also started doing that, because of the, they learn. So I think I agree with you that there is need to stop that. And as I said, the laws are there to punish those people, but the implementation is a problem. I think, again, we go on the political side. Why don't they understand, these politicians, that there is a need for water than the roads? I believe that you need all of those things. Some people focus on one, each government keep focusing on different things. And I think it is for the people of Pakistan to decide who will, if there is a fair elections, then who should be there, and they should come out, and we must say, what is it that your mandate, what is your Mansoor manifesto? We don't even ask, frankly. I have examined them, and you find very little in there. Lastly, I'll say, we are the people. And good governance only will come if there's a good citizenship. We do not have good citizenship. We throw the dirt ourselves. We do not stop if the person is doing the wrong thing. We don't, because we are scared of, I think good citizenship in itself will bring good governance. And on the economic policies, I hope and I pray that this country will have economic or water policy, not because of the government, today's government, but this policy nobody can change. And there should be constitutional guarantee that today the policy, we all make it, whoever the political people, as I said, executive will make it. Judiciary cannot make it. It's not their mandate. So they make it, and then they have a constitutional guarantee, and once they violate it, then the judiciary comes in and they ban it. So I think there's a need for having those policies which are made not by the one government, but collectively made, because it is a collective good. And water is one, I would say, they should sit together and do it. And I tell you, I intend to let this era be over, because right now there's too much of politics. If you come in and you talk about it, they say this is against this government or against this party. I think as the time will come, we all should get together and make a very strong voice. And this is what Khalid Murtazullah Saab has told me, and I intend to do this. I was a little bit busy on some other project, but this is certainly needed, that at least for the water we have one common policy and get on with it. And by the way, all 4 provinces have to agree. You have to have a unanimous one. For example, in that all of the 4 provinces agreed. They also said 1991 accord. How many accords we have? It was sacrosanct. They said we would not touch that, because there was a controversy. 1994 ministerial decision, they will overcome the 1991. They said no, all of them agree 1991 water accord is sacrosanct. So I think this is how nations are made over the years, and hopefully inshallah they will.
So maybe
you and I have to make it.
We have a small comment from Dr. Khalid Murtazullah. So you want to add a comment? So, but in the interest of time, if we could request.
I thought Mr. Mudassir's question was very important, because he said, why are we looking for new water when we can't manage our existing water? I think that's a very pertinent question. And to my mind, I think we need to understand, first of all, the hydrology of Pakistan. When you get more than 75 or 80% of your water in 3 months and the rest in 9 months, how can you ensure perennial water supply for your agriculture? It's not possible. So you have to have a means by which you can store your surplus water and make it available during the year when you need it. Number two, I think you have a very valid point by saying if we can't manage our existing water, how will we manage the more that we get? And that is a very big question. And let me tell you that this probably holds the key to how we are going to be becoming or providing water security to this country. It has happened in countries in this region. And I'll give you the example of China, where more than 80% of fresh water in China was used by agriculture. They've reduced that to little more than 60% in the last 30 years and increased productivity and production. The value of their agricultural production is more than when it was using more than 80%. And I think that is where the argument that you made, sir, that you have to make these investments because saving water again holds the key for effective water management. Every drop stored is a drop saved. And for a system as large as ours, which we are managing the world's largest contiguous irrigation system, which is our greatest asset, which makes Pakistan's economy a water economy. And water and land today hold, to my mind, the low-hanging fruit for economic development. And I'll give you another very good example. California, which that state's economy is the 5th largest economy in the world. And you know how it developed? It was only after they built the All-American Canal and began to produce economic surpluses from agriculture. With those economic surpluses, they invested in building infrastructure for industry to come in. So it was surpluses from agriculture, and it's not only in California. Most developing countries, David Gray, sir, if you remember in Karachi when he told us that if you look at the history of developed countries, they've all gone through this route by making early investments in agriculture so that they produce economic surpluses to put in the needed infrastructure. The Silicon Valleys came after, not before, getting those economic surpluses. In Pakistan's case, we have to realize that unless and until we produce these economic surpluses from the low-hanging fruit of land and water, we cannot have long-term sustainable economic development.
In short, the priorities need to be set right.
Just 1 minute, just I want to add. One of the questions was why we are having such huge leakages and losses in our system, and why we don't care ourselves. One point is, I think you already mentioned that it's a public awareness. That also, yes, it's a awareness, lack of education, and lack of realization. And more importantly, it's a matter of character, that how we are using these national resources, and we don't care about the losses or the investment that could be used beneficially by the others, our brothers. The other aspect of this is I think unless and unless we put a proper pricing mechanism, if you don't pay and you are free to use it, you will not efficient. So until and unless we put a proper pricing mechanisms, then our efficiency will never improve. And that's the huge problem, I think, at the highest level, because they don't want to put these in this national water policy or things, something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir. Thank you, Khalid Mutazullah Saab, and thank you, Nisar Saab, for sharing your viewpoint. And I think, in the interest of time, I would like to now move forward to our next panelist, who is from Sustainable Development Policy Institute, which is a think tank based in Islamabad. And from a think tank's perspective, we'd like to hear the role of research and policy towards integration. So I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Imran, sir.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate being here. I'm honored to be a member of such a panel and being in the presence of people like Khalid Mutazullah. Just a couple of brief remarks. I hope I can do this in 10 minutes. When we talk about water, we need to understand that the country that we're living in right now, in terms of water was created a long time before even there was the concept of Pakistan. It was developed by the British. A lot of these areas which are now providing us with agricultural output, these were the canal colonies. Crops were being grown, and then cotton was being sent to Manchester, for example, so that it could be a part of their industry. That was the reason that the British, brought the water to these areas. They moved people. So a lot of villages don't have their chuck and then there's a number next to it. There are no names because these are all yes, they're canal colonies. And so essentially they've been tailor-made to develop. So this is the thing. And so there's a lot of baggage that we carry with us. The second point is with regards to this concept about water scarcity and how this is where we were, now we've come down. This is mainly due to, the amount of population growth that we've had. In 1947, our population was low, there was a lot of water. With an enhanced amount of population, that figure comes down. But the question then becomes, are we really short of water? Are we short of water if we can afford to have golf courses? Are we short of water if I'm going to be able to wash my car and then in the morning as well as in the evening? If I'm going to let the water run while I'm brushing my teeth? Are we short of water when we can take showers for on and on? So these are some of the things that need to be also discussed when we talk about water. Water governance is about choices. It's a choice. Do we develop a dam? We don't develop a dam. Do we talk about environmental flows below Code 3 and think about reducing seawater inundation that is happening? The mangroves that are suffering. So there's that aspect. Do we talk about carrazes, for example, in our water policy, which are suffering in Balochistan due to this extreme extraction that's happening there? Balochistan is not a part of the Indus basin as such. So what about it? But it's a part of Pakistan. So do we talk about water policies there? So these are just some questions that I'm throwing out. Water is a provincial subject. So even though we don't have a water policy at the national level, I know it's been in the planning phases for nearly 20 years, but the provinces have this mandate to make plans. So the question then becomes to the chief minister of each province, what are you doing in terms of developing a water policy that caters to your own needs? How are you responding to the demands and needs of the population therein? And we haven't done anything in that regard either. Next, I'm going to tell you 4 stories. So we've talked about water, we've talked about having water in mass, we've talked about dams. So there are 4 girl child, I'm father of two girls. So one girl child is in 3rd, and these are the areas I visit. She is not going to school as we speak. She is on her way to get water from a mile away from her home, and what they're going to do is they're going to throw in the bucket, and they're going to have a donkey walk it about a few hundred yards out so that they can get perhaps half a liter of water to take home. There's another girl child, she's in Badin. She's concerned that her parents are thinking about moving out of that area and migrating to a place like Karachi or a slum in Karachi because we talked about climate change, because there's seawater inundation happening. And seawaters are rising, and when there's not water going in the delta through environmental flows, seawater comes in. That is affecting their clean drinking water supply. So their wells, when they drill the well, it's all salty water. It's not sweet water as they say. The 3rd child, she is living in Dera Ghazi Khan. She's concerned that when the floods happen this year, what is she going to be doing? The government tells them to move out. Where is she going to move out? They're going to be moved out into camps, but there are no sanitation facilities there. There's no protection there. Clean drinking water is hard to get. Her mother worries a lot. She doesn't know what's going to happen. And finally, there's a girl child who's very concerned that she passes by a stream of toxic effluent that's coming from an industry, and that's polluting her neighborhood. It's making her sick, it's making her siblings sick, it's making her friends sick. That factory is owned by a very rich person with connections, and even though we've got environmental protection laws, no one's been doing anything about it. So that's the other aspect of water pollution. So what are we doing, sir? Your question regarding, we've got water, but we're polluting it as well. So where do we go? I mean, how can we address this together? And there's this connectivity that needs to be, brought in. These are all linked. It's all about how we think about water. But up till now, we've been thinking about the supply side. We've been thinking about building dams and storages. And storages are important, but we haven't really focused on the demand side instead of the supply side. We haven't talked about the soft path of water, which takes into account ecological and social aspects. That's where STPI comes in. And we work together with organizations such as Nestle to take their work vis-a-vis water stewardship and present it to parliamentarians, for example, and highlight what the latest examples of best practices are, and then see if they can take it forward. We work with organizations such as ICIMOD in Nepal, and with one project that we're working on is hydropower benefit sharing in the northern areas, where we're looking to see how these small hydro plants that have come up, are they benefiting communities? And if they are, how is that working? If they're not, what can be done to improve? And then finally, there's a project that we're working on. It's known as Pathways to Resilience in Semi-Arid Economies, funded by IDRC and DFID, and where we're looking at floods and how they impact us. And what we've found out is that, and it's become cliche, but there's a definite gap when it comes to communication. There's a definite gap when it comes to public participation. There's this notion of environmental democracy where people get to know what's happening around them, and they're part of the decision-making processes. And even though we've got environmental impact assessment laws, they're not followed. Environmental impact assessments of projects are made after the project has been started. The public hearings are done by busing in people from particular areas and busing in people from rural areas where the language is not even Urdu but a third language, and we present them with PowerPoints in English just so that we can tick off a thing saying that we've done a public participation. So these are real issues that our people are facing. And I'll end with this. What we really need to do is to do a survey of our needs. I mean, who's going to require water? For what purpose is it needed? If it's for drinking, it has to be a particular quality. If it's for watering your lawns or the golf course, it has to be of a different quality. You don't want to be giving your drinking water to wash cars or to water lawns. And then, how much of that water is needed? Because at this time, the government, what it does is it's supplying a particular kind and it's there, and then I'm done. But what there needs to be an interaction between the people and the government as to what the real needs are. And we can have policies and we can have plans, and I can tell you that there are more plans that talk about water than there are not. The climate change policy talks about it, the water vision talks about it, we've got a clean drinking water policy, we've got a water sanitation policy, we've got a federal flood council, and they've got a flood protection plan. But are they talking to each other? Are they talking to the policies that have been made on education, for example, or economics? Are these ministries talking to each other? Are the ministries talking to not only each other, but also talking to their counterparts at the provincial level? How about the district level? So these are some of the things that we really need to do in order to bridge the data gap, bridge the information gap that we've talked about. And then, and only then can we make choices vis-a-vis economic, technical, and that's where we really need to be at. And at this time, unfortunately, we're far behind.
Thank you, Dr. Imran. I think it was quite comprehensive, sharing of information. I think what you highlighted was that we've discussed so far the supply side integration of water resources, and there's a demand side integration as well. And I think moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Abu Bakr, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from him because he represents a very unique field in water management, that is technology. And in today's world of growing technology use, we are very much interested in how technology can play its role in this debate of integration. So, Dr. Abu Bakr.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and thank you very much for providing me this opportunity to share my views. I am amongst the experts here. Khalid Abdullah Saab is sitting here, who I occasionally take guidance from, another sort of prominent panelist, and by no means am I an expert on water. So let me actually begin by pointing to something which may not sound very much relevant to today's discussion, which is the World Water Day. So what are the dominating sort of headlines that are capturing the world media at this moment? This is a story about a firm called Cambridge Analytica that allegedly collaborated with the Trump election campaign and the Brexit campaign to manipulate election results. And then there is another side story. I don't know, maybe some of you may be interested or may have noted that we have had our first casualty of a self-driving car. Now, the reason that I am bringing these stories up on a World Water Day event is to highlight two things. First of all, just to remind everybody that as you are looking towards me as a technology expert and as a science expert, technology really is a double-edged sword. So do not look to us as solution providers for things which are actually related to good citizenship and good governance, as Nisar Mehman Saab has correctly pointed out. They are not going to be replacements for those sort of things. That was one reason that I wanted to say that from the beginning, that we seem to be going towards this gadget worship, looking towards technology that will solve all of our solutions. While we ourselves are technologists, I am a roboticist by training. I do robotics even as we, as my bread and butter, but that is not going to solve our sustainability problems. The second reason that I brought this thing up was just to underline what is possible at this moment and what is going to be possible in the future. Now, both of these stories of the Cambridge Analytica about how particular technology, the proliferation of these ICT technologies can do surveillance, again, quote unquote, on our human behavior, on looking at what we are doing, as well as this self-driving car technology, which actually looks at the environment and is able to map and able to manipulate sort of every nook and corner of a particular physical environment. And I think these two possibilities, if you look at now from technology from a positive angle and from the point of view of optimism, they actually provide some very good opportunities for us in Pakistan, where we can deploy these new ways of thinking towards some positive aspects as well. So first of all, let me come to the idea of social networks, where I'm not just talking about the Facebooks or the Twitters or the WhatsApps, but really about social behavior, because social networks have always been there. I mean, a farmer network is actually a social network, embedded in organizations, in sort of amongst themselves and with other organizations, getting influenced. By the way, IFPRI did a mapping of our agricultural social network and the water usage a few years back, and that is a wonderful example of the complexity of the social network and how we can at least begin to understand what those social interactions are. So we can really do measurements of human behavior at unprecedented scale, not only just their behavior on the internet or with the interaction with their phones and with their computers, but really about, for example, their environmental practices, how they are consuming water at homes, on the agricultural fields, and so on and so forth. So we took some steps in that direction in the last few years, where this idea of water metering, for example, coming from the idea of smart metering in the power systems, that can really be thought about, of where we can deploy such water meters at the water course level, at the farmer level, in consumers, in households, and we can try to see what the usage patterns are. So in one sort of related study, we did a whole district level instrumentation of the Hakra Canal Command area with EME's collaboration a few years back, and that project is still going on. And we collected data, season-long data and year-long data, and in fact those sensors are still working in 2 or 3 other canal commands. We were able to extract water usage patterns at minute resolution. 10-minute resolution. So that is a quantum leap from where things are currently. And not only that, we have began to do analysis based on the social behavior related to Barabandi, for example, or the social behavior related to water usage and so on and so forth, and looking at the hydrological flows, not just as a physical phenomenon, but as a social phenomenon as well. Now, the advantage of doing that is that sort of insight of looking into these hydrological phenomena as essentially social phenomena is we can look at alternatives of management practices. Now, let me give you a concrete example. Again, based on the same technological work where we were measuring canal flows at the distributory, primary and secondary levels, as well as on the tertiary channels, but even on the field with Nestlé's collaboration and with some other industrial collaborations, we have actually been able to also measure, for example, soil water moisture at a very cost-effective way on the field at the farmer level. Now, once the plant itself is crying for water, is showing its thirst, or is sending information about a water stress or maybe over irrigation, you can now begin to imagine new ways of water management that is not supply driven, but as you asked me in the beginning, things by way or ways by which we can think about demand based water supply solutions. So that is one way of sort of thinking about the role of technology of all of these ideas into this this whole challenge of sustainability. Secondly, the technology. I was listening to Imran's description of the number of girls from various districts who are facing all of these challenges. At the same time that I think about these self-driving cars and those sort of consumers in the American and European societies who are worried about their surveillance of their social networks. I mean, we really have to connect that sort of technological thinking to somehow what is working or how the societal composition here in countries like Pakistan is. And this is where the idea of a leapfrog technology actually comes in. And by that, what I mean is that maybe something that used to work 20 years back and did not work in our societies, maybe there is something which is coming up now which can be looked at and can start to work for us. Again, I'll give you a concrete example. So back in the 80s and the 90s I would say, this word precision agriculture started to come up a lot in agricultural practices. Again, our friend from agriculture would probably agree with me that we kind of missed that boat of precision agriculture. That at one time we used to be very competitive with the rest of the world due to the green revolution, but the precision agriculture revolution will be missed. Well, there is actually an opportunity to go back to it. And it will not be the precision agriculture of the 90s that actually required very large farms, this very big mechanized farming, requiring very expensive capital investment, heavy technologies. But really the leapfrog technology would be to look at precision agriculture and repackage in what we are calling as agricultural robotics, for example. And these are the same sort of technologies which are packaged in low-cost, sort of cost-effective, very targeted solutions which are meant to deliver that sort of same targeted delivery and inspection capabilities and monitoring capabilities at a much, you can say, cost-effective way to the small farmers or the medium farmers. So this is one direction that our center is sort of working towards, conscious of the developments which are happening in the world of these new developments in technology, but sort of tailoring these technologies for our societal problems in our local context, doing this sort of leapfrogging, enabling those leapfrogging in collaboration with organizations like Nestle, with WWF, with the government departments, prototyping and sort of rolling out these technologies with their help. Many of my colleagues are actually sitting here. For example, Dr. Tariq here, he's a biology professor. He has just done some very groundbreaking work on SRI implementation in Pakistan. Now, back in the audience, Dr. Ahmed Kamal is here, who has flown drones over agricultural fields and tried to measure NPK maps. And what we are very consciously doing at LUMS is that we are bringing all of these experts together. So the theme, of course, is collaboration. So not only is the collaboration happening between organizations like WWF and then government organizations, PCRWR, and our other friends in industry, but also within academia, where distant disciplines like, for example, biology and electrical engineering and economics, they are actually partnering together to look at the deployment of such technologies, of these sort of new ideas. We heard the words climate smart agriculture, we heard the words water smart, demand-based agricultural management. So this is where the focus of the center at the moment is, to be conscious of what is happening around the world, but sort of just reconfigure all of this for the local picture.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Abu Bakr. I think it was very informing for us to understand the interdisciplinary approach that is being adapted at present to deal with the water issues that we're talking about. And I think what I found really interesting was the social implication of technology. How is technology being used to capture the social conscious and the social emotions of communities, to understand behavior of water usage, of water consumption, which can allow us to learn how to implement and use our technological methods in a more effective way. On that note, I'd like to move on to our last speaker, Dr. Zamir Sumro Saab, who is from Pakistan Council of Research in Water Resources, and from him we'd like to understand government's perspective and the role of research in government's domain, and how do you look at, how does government, for that matter, look at dealing with water resource issues and an integration approach.
Thank you, Mr. Sahib. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Before going to the topic or the question of Mr. Sahib, I would like to explain some about the World Water Day, why we are here. So the World Water Day is like other days we are celebrating Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. So the purpose of these days is to refresh. So, but the beauty of the World Water Day is that every year theme of the World Water Day changes. The purpose of this is to look the different perspective of the water. We should not look only the single perspective of the water, but the different perspectives of the water. So the theme of the current year is nature for water. So I will repeat the sentence of Mr. Nisar Memon, that nature-based solutions. Nature delivers the services when our ecosystem is functional. For making the ecosystem functional, we need to give the water to the nature as well. That means the nature not only delivers the water, but it consumes the water as well. So this is like a example, when a businessman invests in the business, if he's refreshing his investment, he will gain more profit. But if he will consume his investment, then what will happen? That will happen which we have did with the nature, and now we are crying that we have the shortage of water. But look into the scenario that whether we have allocated the water for the nature, when we have thought that how much water is needed for the nature, no, we always thinking for our services. So the fundamental of the water security is water for nature and nature for water. So the challenge is what we are facing, as Mr. Dahiri said, that 93% of water is consumed by the agriculture. The cropping intensities has been doubled as our design. Basically, the Britishers designed cropping intensities 60 to 70%. But now, 140, 150, somewhere you will find 200% cropping intensities. This is the horizontal expansion. We believe to fulfill our food requirement with horizontal expansion, but we do not care about the vertical expansion. What are the vertical expansions? I'm sorry to say that our irrigation efficiency, our water productivity is very less. Despite of the largest glaciers, we are among the most of vulnerable water stress country in the world. So, you see, about 55% water is wasted, whatever is available at our canal heads. This is just like we have put food in a plate. No doubt, the wastage will start from the picking of raw material, cooking and whatsoever, but whatever has come in the plate, so among that, we are not able to consume that food. We are wasting more than 50% of that food which is available in the plate. So whatever the available is in the canal heads, that is in the wastage. So no doubt Pakistan VN 2025 addresses that we will improve our storage capacity and irrigation efficiency by 20%. So, in current scenario of climate change, the sustainable water for the agriculture is to compete the water demand in the perspective of the quality and quantity. So Mr. Hamad gave a very nice slogan, and I believe that value for the water. We are frequently listening now a slogan that value for the vote, but here we raise this slogan that value for the water. What is the value for the water? I am not believing that the conserve water, save water. No, value for the water. Whatever is coming with you, you should produce something from the water, whatever is potential. Let us say the average water productivity of the cereals is 1 kilogram per cubic meter. But here we are taking 200 rice for the 200 or 250 grams per cubic meter, and wheat almost 500 grams. So this is not a value. So this is if we are saying that do not apply the irrigation water, or but the actual thing is to get the potential value of that water. For this purpose, we need the efficient irrigation systems. Madam raised the question, a very excellent question, that we should introduce the smart agriculture crops. We should give the alternate of rice crops we should give the alternate of other water consuming crops. So no doubt, Mr. Bahari gave a good sentence that we should need a competitive cropping pattern which needs, which fulfills our requirement of the food in equality in oil, edible oils and whatsoever. But we have to run, we have to travel with our farmer. If we give the immediately give a very high technology to our farmer, perhaps it will be difficult to adapt by them. So currently, if we only adopt that plantation of rice, you know, there's a myth and there's a perception there that the rice is high consuming water crop. But you know, the consumption of rice crop is only 600 millimeter. Only 600 millimeter. And what we are doing, we are applying more than 5,000 millimeter. Why? This is a myth that rice needs standing water, whereas it does not need. It needs the water as other crops. So there is no need of. So there is a need to introduce these technologies that to get a rice yield with a small water. If I give the example of a cell, Mr. Nisar and Mr. Diary will perhaps agree with me. Fortunately, we three are from cell in this panel. So there is a in that myth in rice belt area, people arrange standing water, and not only standing water, but give the circulation of water, locally called pancho, to drain this water and put another water to make the water cool. But this is not only the wastage of water, but the wastage of precious nutrients as well. So this myth has to be changed. This myth has to be changed. So in this scenario, we need the capacity building of our small and medium farmers. But not only, I am saying that not only the capacity building of the farmer is required, but the capacity building of the designer of the engineer of water resources is also required. He don't know how the water resources are managed. If you give a task to a water resources engineer or an irrigation engineer, that design make a PC1 to betterment of the water, what he will do? He will see how much money is available, put a one reservoir, make the lining of these channels, put some tube wells, put the irrigation, drip irrigation, and put the tube wells whatsoever, all hard components. But you see the hard components, these are like a computer without software. If you only believe on the hardware, so this is like computer without software, or a car without petrol, or you say the human without heartbeat. So what is the software of the water resources? Software of the water resources is farmer's mindset. So we have to change the mindset of the farmer. If a farmer has a mindset that he needs to make the standing water for his plant, then if you will provide him the drip irrigation, you will provide them sprinkler irrigation, he will operate and achieve his target by putting lot of operational cost on that. So this is very important that every water resources project need the equal share of the software as to the hardware components. So I agreed with Dr. Abu Bakr that they have introduced some soil master sensor. Basically, these are the tools to determine the water requirement. The crop water requirement can be determined by the soil master base or the ED base. So these are the tools to determine, and PCRWR has already calculated or determined the water requirement of major crops. So the need is to implement these requirements, and the need is to enhance our crop water productivity, irrigation efficiency. And Mr. Nisar Menon gave me a task about water quality, so I will give a few words. If we look in the city where we are sitting now, the city of Lahore is second vulnerable city in Pakistan from the groundwater perspective. The water supply whole is dependent on the groundwater, and water table depth is decreasing almost 3 feet per annum. There is no very negligible source of the recharge, only we are abstracting the water. The city compasses over about 1,000 square kilometer. Whatever generates the runoff, if we put all this runoff into our aquifer, that will fulfill only 40% of the withdrawal. That's why what the VASA is doing, VASA is increasing and increasing depth of the tube wells, because at the shallower depth, when the water table depth is going down, water from the surrounding area is coming and deteriorating that quality, and again they are putting deeper tube wells, 300 to 500, 500 to 700, now it is 800. Where they will go? There is a bed rock at 1200 feet. What will it do then? So mostly there is a big water challenges, and we have to think and give the priorities for the city's alternate sources. No doubt, government of Punjab now has planned alternate source at the surface water for putting. But one thing, what we are doing with the surface water, we are putting surface. These are all the waste into the surface water. You see, all these sewerage water going to Ravi, ultimately to Panjnath and to the Karachi. And I have conducted one recently research study of Manchar Lake, and where I analyze the river water quality as well. So the whole river is suffering from the contamination of the POPs, persistent organic pollutants, that normally which are not treated as a parameter of the water quality. When you are going to test your water, so for the other parameter they will go microbiology is okay, arsenic is okay, DDS is okay, your water is fit for the drinking. But the PAFs are persistent. These pollutants are which you cannot eliminate at any cost, that persists. So what the Karachi is drinking, direct drinking river water. So the Karachi, Dr. Mehman Sahab, test your water for the PAFs. You will find the PAFs which cannot be ejected even by the reverse osmosis.
Sorry, just sorry to break you, but just in the interest of time, if we can, maybe in 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. There is a very limitation of the time, and thank you for the time. Thank you for the
Thank you so much, Sunil sir. I think it was a wonderful and a comprehensive view of our, again, water resource. And I think one key element I picked from your discussion, sir, was that improving farmers' productivity. And just to end our forum today, before we move on to our question and answer sessions, we have with us one member from a farming community. He's Mr. Mustafa Yusuf. He's the managing director for a farm at based in Muridke. And just, sir, in a minute or two, if you could please share with us the farming practices that you have been conducting and how successful have you been. And this is for us to understand from an on-ground implementation and a practitioner's perspective of use of technology and water-efficient methodology.
Thank you. We've been running the farm on drip irrigation for the last 4.5 years, and recently we've collaborated with Nestle and NUMS, and now we've begun using smart soil moisture sensors. So even with the conventional drip irrigation system, we felt that we were never able to achieve the right amount of water that was required for the crop. Now with the help of these soil moisture sensors, the irrigation scheduling has become so precise, and we can already see the benefits in terms of the crop health. And previously we would irrigate based on visual observation, but now the soil moisture sensor actually gives us the precise level of moisture. So I think that's helped us achieve substantial water saving for groundwater. And if I look at people around me, my farm is in Muridke, which is the rice belt. You can see there's so much wastage of water. I think one of the main issues for that is also the pricing of water. So let's say if someone, for example, is paying around 135 rupees per annum to use water for 1 acre. So there's a general perception and belief amongst farmers that either we have enough water, there's no water shortage, or there's no need to conserve water. And I think if I look at my area, when Punjab government started this high efficiency irrigation project in 2014, so they've only been able to achieve about 30% of their target in 3 years. They've extended the project now. So the question really is that why haven't they been able to convince the farmer on using better agriculture techniques or moving towards modern agriculture? And I think that's, like Dr. Abu Bakr mentioned, precision agriculture really is the way forward now. And there is no space now for conventional farmer in today's world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa Sahab. I think one of the reasons for asking you about your practice was because it's very important. We have discussions and debates, but it's also very important to have benchmark practices. So I think practices such as these can help us benchmark our information, benchmark our data, and that can then lead us to adapt these and propagate these practices to other farmers. And this is what the collective approach is about. It is about learning from one practices, sharing it in the community, and then moving forward with that. We had one comment from Dr. Zakir on this, sir.
Just to add a couple of points to Suva Saab's comments. Water productivity actually is a function of water used by crop and also the function of water that the crop yield. And I personally think that our low water productivity is mainly the reason of low crop yields. Of course, we also over irrigate, so that should be some kind of appropriation correction. The other thing that's the irrigation efficiency we often talk about, and we term it among the lowest in the countries. It's something around 40% now that's claimed. But what I personally think it's a surface irrigation efficiency, not the system irrigation efficiency, because almost 50% water comes from the groundwater, and groundwater, we all know that is not a separate source. It actually comes from the losses or the recharge we actually use. So I think in Baglia Dam case or something, I think there was one major point that was hit by Indian side, that our irrigation efficiency is lowest amongst us. So the solution lies with ourselves, and we can improve it. So they actually catch that our negative point. But I want to make a little bit more elaborate, and it's a I think misunderstanding. Our irrigation efficiency is not that low. It's something around 80%. If we count the system efficiency, that should be, I think, elaborated and advocated every forum. The third one point that Sumro Sahab has indicated, that the lowering of water table. I think that it's also a regulation and a policy problem, because we have had a lot of development projects on the water course and canal linings, and there was ill planning, because I think it should happen on a priority basis in the areas from where we cannot recover that water. For example, the lower in the other southern Punjab, because when it goes to the saline groundwater, you cannot recover it. But unfortunately, because it was also a political kind of thing, so we invested in the wrong places. Now we are facing problem of the depleting water table, and of course in the urban cities, urban centers, because everything is cemented now. There's no recharge, and we already have heard that one. So there's also one message for the urban planning, and also from the industries, and also from the private sector, that future urban planning must take into account the stormwater management, so that we could reduce the pollution, and also we could encourage these kind of recharge.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir. And now I would like to break into a Q&A session, keeping interest of time. Please keep your questions concise, but then, so.
Thank you. Just a suggestion that since we were talking about, my name is Nadia Ayub, and I'm a consultant. I'm working on climate smart agriculture and for SIAT and FAO. So just a suggestion that you should come up with training programs that would educate farmers, train them in rainwater harvesting techniques. How to conserve rainwater, how to store it, and how to utilize it, not waste it. Thank you.
I think I always say, it's not necessary that we call such things as like climate smart agriculture. Forget even if it's a myth, I think considering the existing situation, we do not have any choice. We have to introduce conservation agriculture. We have to, my colleagues talked about changing cropping pattern. No choice, we have to do it. Talked about coming up with varieties which use less water, which is the drought-resistant varieties. So PARC of this country have to come up with seeds which consume less water, right? They have to, as a policy think tank, they have to provide us solid data. When I said understand the water, value the water, manage the water, understand the water, they have to, so that as part of our advocacy and lobbying, we take that to the media, to the politicians and to the policymakers, that okay, this particular zone or this particular geography is not, or cannot afford, to grow, suppose, sugarcane. But, and when the government or politicians make a decisions to move the sugar mills to a cotton belt, then, we have solid science to resist that kind of effort. So it doesn't matter whether you call it climate smart or no, but honestly, as a water person, I strongly believe we have to do this. And extension, the thing is, I've been working with extension department. All my life I've worked with farmers. So when, they have to change the message that they take to the farmers. It's not, the same techniques and technologies as Sumro Saab or Dr. Zai mentioned, that growing rice in a standing water. SRI or, we recently launched the Sustainable Rice Platform. You use that techniques, and in Marit ke, I think the colleague, the farmer is also present, but the rice partners or the farmers who are producing rice for Uncle Ben and Mars and all these big brands, they don't have any choice. If they can grow rice with 40% less water, why can't the other farmers do? If a brand can produce something with less water because that's the requirement of, suppose, Marks and Spencer or Levi's, why can't the other Gul Ahmeds and Al Karams of this country? So that's, the laws are the same, the policies are the same, but honestly, we do not have any choice but to ensure conservation in literally every sector. And I think Imran also mentioned the the coordination and integration within the departments and within the different stakeholders, but across other stakeholders. Education. If we can have, even हम तो कहते हैं उर्दू की आप स्पेशल किताब माहौल पे ना बनाएं. हमने पहले बड़ी कोशिश की कि जी 6ठी 7वीं में एनवायरनमेंट की स्पेशल क्यूरिकुलम हो. हमने देखा कि क्यूरिकुलम चेंज करना इज लाइक आप पहाड़ से टकरे मारी जा रहे हैं. हमने कहा कि आप बेसिक उर्दू की इस्लामियात, इस्लाम इन लाइक कुरान एंड एनवायरनमेंट, यू विल फाइंड पूरी बुक है हमने जो प्रिंट की है, जो कुरान पाक से चीज़ें निकाली हैं. सो हमने कहा कि आप उर्दू की इंग्लिश की बुक में 1-2 चैप्टर नेचर कंजर्वेशन पे, वाटर कंजर्वेशन पे, पानी पे, अगर हम वो भी ज़रूरी है. तारिक बिन ज़ियाद, सलाहुद्दीन अय्यूबी और ये जंगो जदल, ये हमने कर दिया, वो कर दिया, बट फॉर गॉड से बेसिक सिटीजनशिप के लिए, बेसिक इन चीज़ों के लिए कि यार पानी क्यों ज़रूरी है, सफाई क्यों ज़रूरी है, दरख्त क्यों ज़रूरी है, वाइल्ड लाइफ क्यों ज़रूरी है, इस पर भी बच्चों को वो करें. ये हमारे फ्यूचर के पॉलिसी एंड डिसीजन मेकर्स हैं. कई जगहों पे कामयाबी हुई है प्राइवेट स्कूल्स, बट कई जगहों पे अभी भी नहीं हुई. बट अगेन दैट्स वेयर टुगेदर इट्स पॉसिबल. कलेक्टिव एक्शन इज रिक्वायर्ड. आई एम टेलिंग यू, आई कीप ऑन सेइंग दिस. हम कहते हैं जी दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है पर्सन की. वी कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग अलोन. वी कैन नॉट लिटरली, let me admit honestly, we have to become a bunch, and bunch is only possible if we are together.
Mr. Mehmet Sahab, if you had a comment to share.
I think I agree with whatever Hamad and my other colleagues have said here. But I think what is really important is that right now when we all are sitting here, one thing is for sure, that there is a greater need for communication. And working in pockets is not going to help. It is working on the agenda that you have and yet sharing with the others who are all the stakeholders. We all are, because a citizen is the biggest stakeholder in the conservation of water, in the availability of water, because for him it's life. So therefore I think we need to understand that we need to go back. And I always say that let's get out of the 5-star seminars and conferences in the 5-star hotel. I'm delighted that today we're sitting in an educational institution. It's not that 5-star hotel, but we need to go down in communication to the level of the citizen. And I think our paradigm must shift, and we should be people-centric. Because so long everything is directed to the person, people, I think we may not be able to achieve the result that we all want. And I would say one other thing. I'm always impressed by the Climate Change Institute in Europe. where they are producing and they're identifying the plants which, if they're grown like mangroves on the seacoast, are grown and they are good for the environment and good for the water, and therefore we need from the scientists in the education institution and the other institution that we have research, we need from them what are those plants that we need to bring out so that they are giving more oxygen and taking in the carbon dioxide and therefore giving life not only on the surface but also beneath the ocean. I think this is very important because we have over 1,000 kilometers of the coastline. And let us not forget that on the other hand, one hand we have the water in the glaciers and the others the rivers, and I fully agree that this recharging is important because you need to not line, and I agree. You line in the place where the water will go down and seep inside, it will be recharged. There is no need for the cemented structure and lining being done, but there's a need for places where it will go waste, like you will add to the waterlogging there. There are the places. But I think at the end of the day, I think while all said and done, we need to produce some kind of common short report out of this session, where I think tremendous discussion has taken place and a lot of recommendation, without saying it's a recommendation, has come in, and I think this in a simple form in English, of course, but Urdu should be there so that this is spread to the people that as to what we are doing in the great institute of life. So this is what I would say, because that's important to reach the people also.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a very good point that to make a short meeting, take notes of this session's meeting. Dr. Abu Bakr, you had a comment to share.
Yeah, I just wanted to link a few points here, especially on this idea of climate smart agriculture, and then picking on what Hamad said about even if the climate change phenomenon is not there, I think the whole idea of variability in our flows, that is so important to tackle, that even without this climate change thing, I think we need to come up with solutions and with monitoring technologies and with some, of course, policy solutions and so on and so forth, just to tackle even factoring out the climate thing. And I wanted to sort of just share a little, I would say a little story. I went to a public school here, a private school here actually in Lahore, where I was with a group of girls, 6, 7, 8 class students. It was not it was one of the elite schools. And they were, I was walking into an event where they were just told about the story in Cape Town, where they have run out of water. And they were also told that in 2025, Pakistan will run out of water. And I could see that they were pretty scared by this sort of this information that was told that we are basically just running out of water, literally speaking. And this just this just led me to just sort of question this whole idea of putting this scarcity picture and keeping where we keep giving these numbers about per capita number of liters or whatever that they say in Pakistan. I think some of that, of course, is true, that our water resources are diminishing. But if we compare our situation with what is happening in the Middle East and in other places of the world, I think I would totally endorse Khalid Saab's observation that water and land is our biggest endowments, and they are inshallah going to be there, climate change or not. I mean, we still have plenty of resources. I think the main challenge there is not the absolute level of water, but really the issue of variability, the unpredictability of when this particular water is available to us or not. And this is where I think the idea of transparency actually comes in, both on the hydrological side of things, where all of the hydrological elements of the rain, the groundwater, the surface water, the communication to the citizens, to the researchers, to the government organizations about what is happening on the ground, under the ground and in the skies, that needs to be communicated, but also about what is happening within the people, how people are using the water, what the behaviors are, and this again circles back to the technology. So once again, I think if one message that needs to get out of this World Water Day, in my humble opinion at least, is that we do not need to be absolutely scared about this scarcity. but really about this fluctuation that is spinning out of control.
Thank you, Dr. Abubakar. I think very rightly put that, the integrative approach you mentioned. In the interest of time, we'll take 3 questions more, and I've seen.
Little comment to add to what you say.
Sure, I'll possibly there are a few hands at the back. I'd like to give them the opportunity. First, sir, you, and then you. And I would request if we can all have questions first, and then we can move on to answers.
So my name is Tarek. I'm professor of molecular biology at LUMS. I teach gene regulation. My own area is gene regulation. So 3 years ago, I started farming. So 3 days a week, I work at farm near Nankana Sahib. And that was about understanding why agriculture is slowly wiping out of Pakistan. And let me tell you, 10 to 15 years, maybe maximum, you will have severe shortage because there's an influx towards cities. You already saw the results in the census. So last year when I was planting rice, I dug up the literature because I thought we are under severe water shortage. Why not look how world is dealing with the rice? And I adopted SRI. Abubakar already mentioned. A bit perplexed because the conventional wisdom and psychology and all the farmers around me were telling me you're going to destroy your crop. So I just worked on 2 acres, and the rest of the 13 or 15 acres I had the conventional rice. The 2 acres I harvested, water cost was just, maybe 1/4 of the conventional. The yield was 1.5-fold higher than the conventional. Disease infestation was much less. So last year then we had a symposium organized in this building, and we called Punjab Agricultural Research Board, all the rice partners, etc. I shared my experience, and to my surprise, and I was worried that why our government has never used this message and convinced through extension. And my last 3 years of farming experience told me there's no extension taking place in this country. I have never seen a single person going to farmers. They go to these big corporate, farmers. It's becoming slowly an industry. So your 90% of farmer holds less than 3 acres of land. And this is a farmer which is under strain. So when I try to convince the farmers around me that next year we'll plant SRI together, their only argument was it requires a bit more labor, and we are, cashed out. We can't arrange that labor. So I think government has all the policies, you have all the law books, you have all the policy books. It's the lack of implementation of the policies or the extension message is not going to farmers. I'm sorry. So there's corruption from bottom to top, and farmers are leaving agriculture, I tell you. So you will have a lot of water, all that 90% of water will be surplus because farming community will move either to cities or they're simply leaving it. They're going to join textile mills or hosiery factories in Jadawala, in Nankana, because they cannot pay the annual lease of the land. So I think, as Nisar Sahab said, we have to get out of this room, go to the farmer, listen to his real problems, and then try to convince that, you can grow rice without inundating the field, without flooding water, and you can harvest 1.5 to 2-fold more yield and the quality as well, and less disease infestation.
Thank you, sir. Another question at the back.
Thank you so much. I'm Sudhir Chaudhary from Holdings. I'm also president Agriculture Journalists Association. I want to speak in my own language. Please allow me. भाई ये प्रोफेसर साहब की बड़ी खूबसूरत बातें हैं. हम लोग सेमिनार्स करते हैं, कॉन्फ्रेंसेस करते हैं. मुझे 14-15 साल हो गए यही सुनते हुए, लेकिन हम अभी वहीं खड़े हैं. अभी तक ज़मीर साहब ने बताया कि 2025 में हम आउट ऑफ वाटर हो जाएंगे. सवाल ये है कि पानी के ज़खायर क्यों नहीं बनाए जाते? हमें बिजली भी चाहिए, हमें पानी भी चाहिए, तो हम क्यों फर्नेस, कोयला और दीगर तरह से बिजली बना रहे हैं जो हमारे क्लाइमेट के लिए, एनवायरनमेंट के लिए बेहतर नहीं है? हमने डैम्स बनाने के लिए इतनी मेहनत क्यों नहीं की? पूरी दुनिया में मालियाती इदारे पाकिस्तान को फंड्स देने के लिए तैयार हैं, लेकिन हमने वो ज़राए क्यों इस्तेमाल किए जिससे क्लाइमेट को हमने बिल्कुल नज़रअंदाज किया। मैं चाइना गया, चाइना में हमने देखा कि वहाँ पे एग्रीकल्चर जो वहाँ पे इनकलाब आया, 10 साल में 12 साल में उन्होंने अपनी पूरी इंडस्ट्री को जो है वो वहाँ पे 10 साल के अंदर अंदर वो तब्दील किया है। फिर वो सनती इनकलाब की तरफ आए, तो वाई नॉट इन पाकिस्तान। और दूसरा, प्रोफेसर साहब ने ये भी कहा कि यहाँ पे छोटे किसान ज़्यादा हैं, हमें उन पर तवज्जो देने की ज़रूरत है, जो कि उर्दू भी कम ही समझते हैं, पंजाबी में उनको ज़्यादा समझ आती है। तो मेरा ख्याल है कि ठंडे कमरों से निकल कर हमें खेतों में जाकर गाँव लेवल पर जाकर उनको समझाना होगा। शुक्रिया।
Thank you, sir. Sir, before we can move to answering these questions, one more hand I saw there, and then we can move towards the answers.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hamza and I'm a student at LUMS. My question is from Mr. Nisar. As Mr. Hamad and you mentioned about the structure of governance and laws which are not being completely implemented, as I understand, due to which we are and we will be facing water crisis. But Dr. Imran highlighted earlier that there is water and there is no water. So there are people who are really using water and there are people who don't even get water. My question is, what type of policies and laws are we talking about? Are these infrastructure laws? Because what I see myself living in the same region, for example, people living in defense, so they are getting non-stop supply of water, and just across the wall in the towns, small towns, they are like hardly getting few buckets of water. And this is happening in many regions of Pakistan. Don't you think this problem should be addressed first, equal supply for every citizen? I believe this might reduce water crisis in the first step.
Thank you, sir. If you can answer to all three questions, or whichever you can wish.
Okay. Thank you, Hamza. I think your point is very valid. There cannot be a disparity among the citizens. And I think it's a question of the Constitution of Pakistan is very clear. But the question again is the implementation. And that will not take place unless the voices become louder. Because sometimes I've been part of the political system. We are hard of hearing too. We hear it loud when it comes loud and clear. When it comes vehemently, then we hear it out. We can hear the sounds when it comes to Faizabad, the bridge, when the road is closed. But we do not hear the sound of people who are dying because of the lack of water, and they are paying more. I can tell you, I've come from Sindh, and my grandfather came from Keti Bandar. 2 weeks back I was there. They are a poor man. They're buying a water tanker for 3,000 rupees, which is very expensive for them. So these disparities, they are there. I think, frankly, the policies are there. What kind of policies will we have is because one thing people, this was just mentioned that now the 18th Amendment very clearly laid down that there will be certain subjects which will go to the provinces, like water and environment. It has been there, but it has gone past. Where did we go? Well, I have to be also critical of my own people. Is that where we went wrong? 18th Amendment was a political decision. They did it, fine, well done. All congratulations to those who got it. But where is the detailed implementation plan that when you take out from a federal subject to the provinces, what is the mechanism? I have been an IBM executive. I know that anything we announce, we always used to think of the implementation plan, and that had to be followed. Unfortunately, 18th Amendment calls for all this passing out to the provinces and to the local government, but there has not been the implementation plan. I also accept that I was part of the government of President Musharraf, where the local government was given all the powers. But what happened? But the money was coming from the provinces. Now that is where the catch is, that if you do a good thing, but if you root it through, because politically it may have been expedient, when you do it, the system collapses. And the same thing is for police response and everything. So I personally think that yes, the policies need to be there, and that's why I said the policies. Now Wagner did a wonderful job, and I must say that 2013, 14 or so they started, and they went to all the 4 provinces and in Islamabad, and they got all the input to formulate this policy. But the question is that the policy must then become public before it is formalized, because then the people will come in, and that's the way the world is going around. We don't do this. We keep it tight. I have a copy, I will now give it to you. And I think we must ask for the policies to be made public before they are enacted as law. And that is what is there. And I'm saying this because there are also my friends from the media, and they should pick up these things. And we should tell them that while we discuss, we are only professionals here. We can discuss, we recommend, but they must be making the noise. Now the media is to fail, in my view, completely where the environment waters come. They love to show the picture of the criminals, the terrorists. What good is that for me? I don't want to see the criminal face. It should be blanked out from the skin. But no, we show them. We show all those who are causing the trouble to this land from the national security. But we show it to them. I think media is well advised that whatever is being said, even in a small forum like this and others like water environment, they should project it. They should come out with the public interest slogans and so on and so forth. And that is how it will happen. I think the more we do it, inshallah, it will happen. Sorry, I could not get your name, but you mentioned about the hydropower. Yeah, you talked about the various forms of energy, and I really agree with you. Hydel is only one aspect. Pakistan is only using 18% of the potential that we have for exploiting the hydel. We have failed again, and we should have done more, and we need to also talk about the more hydel because it's a cheaper one. But at the same time, Pakistan did go in the wind, and in the just next to Karachi and also somewhere in Punjab, we have the wind corridor, and we must utilize it. And I think that's where the government's incentive should come in. And you're seeing that in your province there are parks for the solar. Solar is there. The last one that I will also like to mention is, unfortunately, that was to be there. Singapore does not have water, potable water. And what did they do? They converted the saline into the drinking water. And that is what we have, a coastline, and we in Karachi had a power gen. I'm even telling you the name. And we summoned them when we were in the Defense Committee, because this was installed in the Defense Housing Authority of Karachi. And they made president of that time to inaugurate it. After 3 weeks it came down. And public appearance, public hearing we had, and it was clearly laid out that there was issues, there was wrong things happened, and within few months they were to do. And then when the government changes, or let's say we change from one senator to other, that committee finished and the other committee never pursued it, and that remains as an open issue. Where are those culprits? We are talking of only the political people are the culprits? No, sir. The society in various segments, in all the segments, have the culprits. We need to identify them. And I tell you, the solar is one very positive, free energy, and the other is also the saline to converting to the water. So these are the possibilities. If we continue to talk about it, we continue to emphasize the importance of it, and in a manner that it reaches the policy makers. And I think these are the issues you and I should take as, when someone comes to ask me, if I come to ask you, won't ask me that, is that what is your position on these issues? We don't even ask. हम तो कहते हैं जी फलां को देना, ये पार्टी अच्छी लगती है, वो नहीं लगती है, उस फलां का ये है, फलां का ये है, उसके वो. That's not the basis of. I think inshallah, as the democracy will continue to be practiced, hopefully, then inshallah we will continue to ask these fundamental questions, and then we vote for them.
Thank you.
That's the only way the change
Thank you, sir.
will come all the way.
And maybe Dr. Khalid, Imran Khalid had a.
जी मैं पहले जो क्वेश्चन आया था ये पानी के ऊपर, किस तरह अमीर इलाकों में पानी मुहैया होता है और बाकियों में नहीं होता. हमारे अपने घर में बोर्ड लगा हुआ है पिंडी में. Nobody came and asked us कि आप कब लगा रहे हैं, क्यों लगा रहे हैं, इसमें से कितना पानी होता है. ऊपर से पानी आता है, ओवरफ्लो होता है, ज़ाया हो जाता है, हम मोटर ऑन कर देते हैं। अब उन्होंने ये किया कि जी ओवरफ्लो का टैंक अब जिस जगह पे हम रहते हैं, नाउ दैट गोज इनटू द ड्रेन। तो अब पहले कहीं पे ओवरफ्लो होता था तो वो आपके लॉन में चला जाता था, नाउ इट्स गोइंग इनटू द ड्रेन। नाउ दिस इज एन आर्मी हाउसिंग कॉलोनी। तो ये हमारी वो एक इंजीनियरिंग अप्रोच है कि भाई ये करना है, भाई पानी आ गया, अब जो यूजेज कर रहा है, जो इस्तेमाल कर रहा है, वो उसको नहीं पता। सो द पॉइंट इज कि जो मैंने पहले जिक्र किया था कि अपनी नीड्स आइडेंटिफाई करनी चाहिए। दूसरी बात है कि लॉज हैं हमारे पास, देखिए क्यों नहीं हम लोग बंद करवा सकते कि ग्राउंड वाटर से कितनी एक्सट्रैक्शन हो रही है, कितनी लिमिट है, क्या नहीं। आपके पास पानी किस तरह इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। अगर इस मुल्क में आप बसंत बंद करवा सकते हैं, अगर वैलेंटाइंस डे के ऊपर पाबंदी लगा सकते हैं, लोगों को जाके चेक कर सकते हैं, तो ये कितनी आपको देर लगती है कि आप घर घर जाके चेक करें कि भाई क्या हो रहा है। इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल्स आते हैं, उसके साथ आप इसमें बिल्स ऐड करें। जितने आपके वो है आपकी इस्ता है, उसके लिहाज से आपको उसके पैसे देने चाहिए। आई बी विलिंग टू पे इट, आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ अस विल बी है, लेकिन वो हो नहीं रहा। दूसरी बात आपने डैम्स की। देखिए डैम्स वर्ल्ड बैंक के मकसद से हमें डैम बनाए थे, अब वो पैसा नहीं है। वर्ल्ड बैंक देन दे बैक्ड आउट। वर्ल्ड कमीशन डैम्स की रिपोर्ट आई, उन्होंने कहा जी इसके लिए सोशल इम्पैक्ट्स होते हैं, एनवायरमेंटल होते हैं। सो देन द वर्ल्ड बैंक सेड कि नहीं, अब हम आपको फंडिंग कर सकते। इट्स अ वेरी एक्सपेंसिव प्रोपोजिशन। आपके मुल्क में कितने % लोग टैक्स देते हैं? हम सबको पता है यहाँ पे टैक्स कोई दे नहीं रहा, कहाँ से वो आएगा? सी सो दैट्स वाई देन यू हैव द लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज, और फिर आप लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज के साथ ही डील कर सकते हैं। फिर जो आपके पास पानी आ रहा है आप उसको अच्छी तरह मैनेज करें। डैम्स का वक्त आएगा, पैसे होंगे तो आप कर लेंगे। आप चाइना के पास जाते हैं, चाइना कहता है जी आप जब हम आपको पैसे देंगे तो फिर वो डैम फिर आप उसी तरह करेंगे जिस तरह के हमारे पास हमारे ओनरशिप होगी, हम लोग करेंगे। वो ओनरशिप फिर आपके पास रहती नहीं है। सो इफ यू वांट टू बी एंस्लेव्ड टू समबडी एल्स, गो अहेड, वी कैन डू दैट। लेकिन अगर आपने अपने उस पर करना है तो गुड गवर्नेंस पे आना पड़ेगा। These are some things that are very complicated. इसके लिए आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि जी इस्लामाबाद में क्या सिचुएशन है, वहाँ पे बंदा बैठ के नहीं कर सकता। उसको पता रहना चाहिए कि ठट्टा और बदीन में लोग क्या सोच रहे हैं, नॉर्दर्न एरियाज में क्या हो रहा है। डॉक्टर साहब ने वल्नरेबिलिटी की बात की, और जो क्लाइमेट चेंज के जरिए टेम्परेचर और प्रेसिपिटेशन पे असर होगा। दिस इज ऑल साइंटिफिक एज वेल एज सोशल इशूज। इनको कंबाइन होकर आपके लिए एक स्ट्रेटजी बना सकते हैं, वरना इस तरह मीडिया में कह देना कि यार ये चीज़ कर लें, वो चीज़ कर लें, इंडिया ये कर रहा है हम नहीं कर सकते, that's not going to work.
Thank you, Dr. Imran. I think we have last comment from Dr. Zagar. Sir, if you can have a keeper check on
addition, what Dr. has said, large names. I think this is a kind of controversial issue. But the problem is that is there any solution? Because of course, coming from the hydropower, there are many other alternatives. But the issue is that is there any restriction on the dams? Because there are hundreds of sites within, and there could be only for carryover dams. There are a lot of options for the only energy. But our focus has been mainly on the irrigation dams, that multi-purpose dams, and there's a policy. I mean, let's harvest the low-hanging fruits first. And my question is that is there any single alternative of Kolabag Dam, or there are many other alternatives? So why we could not go ahead for the dams which are non-controversial, and why we are still in the controversial issues? The other thing that our brother has said, he's pointed out very important issue, the equity. Although I think if you look at the current water policy, which is half approved, equitable water distribution is an essential guiding principle for that policy. And access to clean and safe drinking water has been accepted as a basic right for everyone. But the problem is, Mr. Honorable Nisar Memon has already pointed out, it's a problem lies in the implementation. Who is going to implement it? Of course, the government, functionaries. So that's the problem.
Thank you, Dr. Zakir. And ma'am, you just had one comment. I mean,
one comment. This thinking was कि जैसे carbon की एक pricing लाते थे, carbon utilization और सारी. Why don't we have a pricing for water? For instance, does anybody realize what is the price we pay for producing 1 kg of sugar or 1 t-shirt or something? We never think of that.
Yeah, I just respond this in a few words.
I think this is something where the global markets are playing a role. So there are global standards for literally most commodities. Like for cotton, it's called Better Cotton Initiative. For sugar, it's called Born to Grow. For rice, it's called Sustainable Rice Platform, where the private sector has taken the lead as part of the, and they are giving money for farmer training and promoting, practices which reduce per unit of water or the unit of water per unit of that particular kg of commodity or per meter of fabric. So this is something which is happening. But as I think Professor Saab ne bhi bataya, कि literally this is the job of the extension services. But extension को आप कह रहे हैं कि तुमने डेंगू पे करना है कंट्रोल, तुमने इतवार बाजार लगाना है, तुमने वो करना है, so वो अपने जो उनका मेन मैंडेट और जो जॉब है उससे तो वो हट गए हैं. ये एग्रीकल्चर जर्नलिस्ट वाले मेरे भाई उनको भी ज़्यादा पता होगा कि एक्सटेंशन जो प्रोडक्शन पैकेज आता है, जैसे प्रोफेसर साहब ने बताया फॉर राइस, इफ़ दैट कॉटन का प्रोडक्शन पैकेज आता है, सबके आते हैं, अगर इफ़ दैट प्रोडक्शन पैकेज डज नॉट इंक्लूड द प्रैक्टिसेस, the tested, tried, well-researched practices which reduce the footprint of that particular commodity, और सिर्फ टारगेट ये इतने एरिया में ये चीज़ लगाओ और इतनी हमें चाहिए, ये चाहिए, किस हाउ को टोटली इग्नोर किया गया. So that's where the problem is कि आप उसको एक आपकी जो सर्विसेज हैं उसको यूटिलाइज नहीं कर रहे और उसके अंदर ये चीज़ें आप शामिल नहीं कर रहे.
Well, thank you, Ahmad Saab, on that concluding note. I understand that there are a lot of questions in your minds, but due to a limited amount of time, we'd have to close our session for today. I'd like to thank all our panelists for sharing very insightful information with us, and I think it was a very enlightening forum. This whole debate. Key messages that I'd like to share before I conclude are that we talked about disconnectivity of data, we talked about nature-based solutions, we talked about having effective communication, the lack of implementation, we talked about although agriculture has a major share, but then industry and private sector has its role to play. What I realized and what I learned from this was that these are all means to an end. They're not an end themselves. And so the end goal is to have a sustainable usage of water and to conserve our water bodies so that not us but our future generations can also bear benefits out of our water resources. And the agenda, one of the key solutions of doing that is through a collective action approach, sharing data, sharing information, and then as one of our farming friends also pointed out, that the benchmarking of these practices and spreading those practices is very important. On that note, I would like to conclude today's session and also request that there is lunch being served for you all at the executive dining hall. So we request you to proceed there. Once again, thank you for being a good audience. Thank you so much.
On behalf of LUMS, I would also like to thank everybody who has taken the time to come here, and thank you to Nestle Pakistan as well for collaborating with us on organizing this event, and to WWF especially for moderating this session, and Ahmad and Saab and other esteemed colleagues from PCRWR, PARC and SDPI. Thank you so much.
Thank you.